And it is time for a new edition of the Factor Uncensored. First up tonight, a side of Bun B the public rarely gets to see. He got emotional in court today, testifying in the sentencing hearing for the man charged with breaking into his home and putting a gun into his wife's head back in 2019. That suspect's name is DeMonte Jackson. Bun B, whose real name is Bernard Freeman, says he was in the restroom when everything started, but he knew something was wrong when he heard the fear in his wife's voice, Queenie. He says his wife is still affected by the incident to this day.
There are times where she gets closed off. She can't communicate. And I get so angry all again because she didn't deserve it. She didn't ask for this.
There was a shootout between Bun B and Jackson in the garage of his home. Bun shot the masked suspect before he ran off and ran away. My next guest has more details on the case and when the hearing will conclude. And joining us now here on the Factor Uncensored, we have with us former Harris County Assistant District Attorney, now Criminal Defense Attorney, Biyoji Akingbola. And you have some history with this case involving Bun B's home invasion, which I think this case took place back in 2019. First of all, what was your history with this case?
Very minimal, if you can even call it that. Back in 2019, I was a lowly felony 3 prosecutor, and I have a distinct memory of when this case happened, and we were all excited, a little bit starstruck, because Mr. Bernard Freeman came to the office and did an interview, and we all knew that Bun B was in the office for very unfortunate circumstances, but I didn't have any direct involvement in this case. I just remembered it when I was there as a prosecutor myself.
Now, this case took place back in 2019, where DeMonte Jackson is accused of a home invasion, and I think he entered a plea in this case. So why is it taking so long? It's, 5 years now?
Well, there's a series of reasons and factors that take the reason why it takes this long. First and foremost, this happened right before Corona. He took a plea deal back in December of 2019. And as we all know, in 2020, Corona hit and everything pretty much went to a screeching halt with respect to court proceedings. After, though, however, I'm just looking through the filings, I see that there were a few motions for continuances that were filed. The defense attorney on this case is a very good defense attorney. Shout out to Leticia Quinones. She is a very great attorney. It seems that she just wanted to do her due diligence and getting all of her eggs in a row and making sure that she can present the best case possible. And I do want to discuss what he actually pled to and what this hearing is about, if we can.
Okay, and absolutely. But first of all, tell us what happened back in 2019, then take us to where you want to take us now.
Okay, so as we all know, back in 2019, Bun B, Bernard Freeman, was a victim of a home invasion where this individual, Mr. DeMonte Jackson, he was accused of breaking and entering into the home of Bun B, Bernard Freeman, and putting a gun to his wife's head, and from there attempting to steal the vehicle of the home. Once he was going to get the vehicle, the defendant, Mr. DeMonte Jackson, allegedly Bun B heard the commotion, and he came downstairs to help his wife out. A gunfight ensued. DeMonte Jackson was struck by one of the gunfire from Mr. Freeman. He went to the hospital, and while he was at the hospital, the police were able to piece this case together, and he was then subsequently charged of 2 crimes, aggravated robbery and also burglary of a habitation with the intent to commit aggravated robbery, both of which are first-degree felony offenses. Then, leading to 2019, December of 2019, Mr. Jackson pled guilty to these offenses. And in doing so, he pled to what is called a pre-sentencing investigation hearing, which is a fancy way of us lawyers saying a punishment hearing. Essentially what he's doing is saying, I am guilty of this offense. The facts are true. I now present myself to the mercy of the court to determine what the just punishment should be. And what the judge does in that case is look at the range of punishment. For these cases, which are first-degree felony offenses, he's looking at a range from 5 to 99 years in the Texas Department of Corrections. Alternative.
The question I've always had was, did he know this was Bun B's home, or was he just randomly breaking into someone's home?
My understanding was that it was a random occurrence, and it just so happened to be that it belonged to Mr. Bernard Freeman. What the judge is now going to have to do is look at both the mitigating factors and the aggravating factors of this case. When we say aggravating factors, what are some things about this case that, shock the conscience? For instance, there was a gunfire in someone's home. That's certainly not going to be a good fact for the defense. Additionally, they're going to consider his criminal history. Now, I think this cuts both ways, because in looking at this gentleman's criminal history, it appears that he had none prior to this offense. He did, however, pick up some federal cases after this alleged, no longer alleged, after this incident occurred. And so the court's going to have to weigh that. On one hand, we have a young man, never committed a crime before, up until this occurred. On the other hand, this was a home invasion. There was a gunfight inside of someone's house. He did have some criminal history. Another issue to consider is, what is his mental health? The judge is going to weigh all of these things and then essentially either give what's called deferred adjudication, which is a form of community supervision, or give him a prison sentence anywhere between the numbers of 5 to 99. For the sake of the defense, the hope is, if he cannot get a deferred adjudication, that he can at the very least get somewhere on the lower end of that spectrum, at the minimum of 5. You would hope that as a defense attorney, if he were to, let's say, get 10 and you factor in parole, then he's only looking at half of that time. He can get out in 5 years. And so it's really going to be up to the judge ultimately to make a decision regarding what's going to happen with this case.
And a very emotional day for Bun B, who actually broke down on the stand when he talked about what his wife Queenie endured going through that situation.
And that emotional factor is something that a judge who is human cannot ignore. You have this grown man who is well respected in the community, a Houston icon, and he's on the stand breaking down in tears. That's something that, if I was a defense attorney, I'm not going to be happy that took place, because it's going to be in the back of the judge's mind when he's factoring all of these issues and trying to make a decision regarding what the punishment should be.